David Benson is an incredibly talented musician, producer, and engineer hailing from California. His impressive list of artists he's worked with include Michael Jackson, Don Henley, Barry Manilow, Stevie Nicks, Barbra Streisand, and many, many more. His story was so interesting, we had to break the podcast into 2 parts. In part 1, Dave discusses his musical beginnings, his experience as a keyboard tech and stage manager, starting a record label in Russia during the Cold War, and how to properly smuggle the Devils Dandruff into the United States after attending a party with Pablo Escober on the guest list. Enjoy.
You're listening to Soundwall with Adam Schumann, presented by Danville Music, your local music store.
I want to start this podcast by first saying thank you. Thank you. This is our guest is David Benson. And the second thing is I don't know what to do with you. And here's why. Because I'm looking at your resume. And this isn't a podcast. This is a 10-volume DVD set of the people you worked with.
The most boring DVD set ever.
Yeah, right. So let's talk about some of the snoozers here. We have Don Henley, Stevie Nicks, Barry Manilow, the Moody Blues, Michael Jackson on the Dangerous Tour, in my humblest opinion, probably his best one. Barbra Streisand, American Idol, Carrie Underwood, Eric Clapton, Procol Harum, and I mean, have you ever worked with anybody that people know about? Or
No, only the slouch. Only the slackers in the business. That's who I work with.
So impressive. So,
well, thank you.
Well, thank you for spending your time here. So, one thing I'd like to start with is, when did you first fall in love with music?
Wow. Well, it could be a 2-parter because there's when did I start music and when did I actually fall in love with it. I started music because my parents pushed me into piano lessons around 1st grade. They say that I came home from school, we had a piano in the house, and that I started to plunk out melodies by ear. And they thought, well, then I guess we better encourage this. This might be good, right? So they pushed me right into piano lessons. Absolutely hated it for years. Didn't like it at all.
Did you have a creepy cat lady or something like that?
Yeah, kind of. I remember because I grew up here in the Bay Area, in the East Bay. And
Which city?
At that time, we were living in San Lorenzo. But the crazy cat lady, piano teacher, was in San Leandro. And I never enjoyed going to those piano lessons. It just was weird, and she never I always tried to trick her into, because she put the music up and want me to read the music. And somehow I would get her to play it for me, and then I could just play it by ear. And she saw what was going on, so she kind of put the kibosh on that. It wouldn't play anything. So again, it wasn't a love of music. I was beaten into it. But then I think around high school time is when I really started to fall in love with playing music. Always a listener. I always was, enjoyed music, and it was a perfect time for me growing up in the 60s. I mean, all the influences and everything here in the Bay Area was great.
Who were your favorites?
When I was growing up, I think, well, it's funny because it was pretty wide. I remember being in the car and hearing Flowers on the Wall. I don't remember the artist, but it was it's a song that just sticks to me. But then also, I really got turned on to Sly Stone quite early, grade school. I had a gap in my education where in my junior high years, my father, who worked for IBM, got a job in Taiwan, of all places. So we moved to Taiwan for 2 years, and those were really 2 great music years that I missed out on, 1968 and 1969. So all the Woodstock stuff, all that was going on, I mean, I heard it, but I kind of missed out on being part of the scene. So before that, Sly Stone. Loved Sly Stone. After that, came back, started high school in Pleasanton, and Tower of Power became my favorite because Dave Garibaldi went to my high school right before, he graduated just as I was coming in. So Tower of Power was playing at our, youth dances at the Alameda County Fairgrounds and stuff in those days. And that's when I saw, this is not some thing that's unobtainable. You can play in a band and do something cool and have fun. And of course, there's the women. So high school, I think, is when the love of playing music really got into me.
And what was your instrument of choice at that point?
Bass. And that was only because I was a drummer and played drums. And in my freshman or sophomore year with some friends, we decided to form a group, and I was going to be the drummer. Out in Pleasanton, this is bumfuck Egypt out there at that time. There was, nothing. We couldn't find a bass player. Had a guitar player. There were lots of other drummers, but no bass players. So I just flipped and said, okay, I'll play bass. And so I taught myself. And then all through school, I actually taught myself about reading for the bass and playing I played in all the jazz bands. And so it really became my performance instrument at that time.
Oh, man, bass. Playing bass in a jazz band, I can't imagine how much that was helpful, right? Because I think of like James Jamerson as being the guy who started in jazz bass. Now, did you play both the upright and the electric bass, or just electric? Or
listen, if somebody held a gun to my head, I could probably plunk out a few notes on an acoustic, but really it was electric bass.
And what was it? Tell me about your first bass then.
Oh, wow. So the first bass that I had was a Horner copy. It was like, I don't even think it had a brand name, but it was basically a clone of McCartney's Horner bass, and it had like these weird switches on the bottom. I'm not even sure if they did anything. It was just like for a look, and it was just a total piece of crap. But the good news for me was that the high school instrumental department had a Fender jazz bass for the jazz band.
Oh,
and listen, I can't, hopefully we'll talk more about it, but my high school band teacher changed my life in so many ways. And one of those ways was that if we were going to play a gig, he would let me borrow the bass to play the gig. So I had a good quality instrument. I was thinking about this. I just saw a picture the other day, and you being a gear guy, I thought I better take a look and see what this is. I had a Standell bass amp. Standell bass amp. I never see him again, but Standell that we purchased from. This is the other question I wanted to ask you. I think this is the right name. Best Music?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, because I was trying to remember. Was it Best Music? Yeah, because we'd always rent stuff from there and buy stuff from there, and I think that's where we got the Standell amps, was Best Music.
Very cool.
They're gone now, right?
Yeah. As far as I know, yeah.
We used to call it Worst Music, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so that was my first bass, was this weird Horner copy, and then Fender Jazz, which was amazing to play, and then the first bass that I purchased myself was a Music Man, in the first or second year that they came out. I really liked that Music Man bass a lot. I wish I would have kept that thing. But at some point, I traded that in at Leo's Music. There's another local that's gone, right? Leo's is gone.
Yeah, out of Oakland.
Out of Oakland, right. On the Berkeley border, I think, right? Yeah. Because they had, and so now this is I want to say it's like the later 70s. And fusion was a thing. So you had Stanley Clarke, and of course he's playing an alembic, and it's local. I'm thinking, I'd love to have an alembic, but they were really expensive. So I went down just by chance. I was at Leo's Music, and I saw on the wall a thing that looked like an alembic, and I'm like, what the heck is that? Oh, that, you want to check it out? It turned out to be a, now the name's escaping me, Doug Irwin.
Okay.
Who was a part of Alembic, obviously, but then went on to build all the guitars for Jerry Garcia and stuff like that. So it was a Doug Irwin bass. And so I traded my Music Man for that. And I still have that bass. I still play it. And so that was that. And then at one point I also got bought a Fender Jazz, and I filed down the frets because of Jocko.
Right.
Right.
Hopefully you didn't start fights in bars like Jocko did too.
No.
Oh, good.
I have friends who were on some Weather Report tours with them, and I painting his body black, running through the train naked. I mean, that guy was crazy. Nuts.
Well, he's an artist,
Yeah, he was. He's amazing.
I remember seeing him the first time on a video with Joni Mitchell and Pat Metheny, and just listening to that was unbelievable. It was so smooth and just had a great feel too.
Yeah, I saw that tour at the time it was called the Civic, but now it's, I think, Bill Graham Auditorium.
Okay.
That Joni Mitchell tour with Pat Metheny, Lyle Mays, Jocko. It was amazing. And you know who I went with?
Who?
Spencer Chan.
Spencer Chan, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Spencer's one of our piano teachers at Danville Music, and just a fantastic Fantastic guy.
Oh man, unbelievable. Good friend of mine. I toured a lot with Spencer in like bar bands and Holiday Inn circuit, and we did all that stuff.
Okay, so once you got out of high school, you played around here for a bit, and then you moved to LA. Do you want to talk about that transition and how that came to be?
Sure. So I was here, of course, my parents, my father especially, was encouraging me to go to college, like every good parent.
Mm-hmm.
Go, yes, I know you love music, but you better get a backup plan. So I went to Cal State Hayward which is now, I guess it's called Cal State East Bay.
Correct.
For, 2-3 years. I started as a psychology major, then I was a pre-nursing major, all the time still playing in bands at night. So at some point I was like, wait, this doesn't feel right, and I'd rather play music. So went off in a band. That was like my first, I'd say, professional band, was with Spencer Chan. And Mark Foglia, doesn't he teach there too sometimes?
Yes, yes.
Mark was a drummer. And we started to just play around clubs here in a pretty regular basis. Like Frenchie's, I think, was a club that was there. There was Alpenglow Tavern. Just kind of these local places. And then at some point, we got an agent, and we were going to go out on some out-of-town gigs. Modesto, that was like a big thing for us. Let's go to Modesto and play, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had just re-enrolled at Cal State San Jose State as a music major, because they had just started a jazz music degree. Only the first place that did that in California. So I thought, great, now I can still do what I want and still get my college education like my dad wants. Well, commuting from Modesto to San Jose every day was kind of a bitch. So that lasted about a year. And then it was like full on just play music. And we did, Holiday Inn circuit in Boise, Idaho, and anything just to be playing. But it was a great education. We always refer to it as that's our fraternity, because that's where we got all the social skills of, how to be around people and how do you resolve conflicts with your friends and stuff. So we did that for a couple of years.
Did you find that those sort of interactions, particularly dealing with getting paid after the show?
Yes.
I think that's the crash course in music business education, isn't it?
Or maybe more appropriately, not getting paid after the show.
Exactly.
But yeah, you learn really quick that you got to be on your business and make sure,
Do you feel like those interactions helped you moving forward to when you did move to Los Angeles?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Most definitely. And again, just the interaction with my bandmates, how to kind of go through life with someone and talk to them and make a plan and grow. It was invaluable to me. So there was that band. Then there was another band that I was in with Les, of all people. And we were doing great. The last band in the Bay Area that I was in was called Daybreak Limited, and they were a pretty well-known jazz fusion rock band. And we played all the clubs that you could, the Keystone Palo Alto, the Keystone Berkeley. We were doing all these clubs. And what I felt was that, is this all there is? This, to me, seemed like I had gotten to the top of the ladder in the Bay Area. I mean, I know there's many more rungs on that ladder that I didn't see at the time, but I thought, I've topped out. What else can I do? So I paid $300 a year for a subscription to Billboard magazine because I wanted to learn the business, and I had a plan that in a year I was going to go to L.A. Initially, it was to study at the time it was called GIT, Guitar Institute of Technology, and they had a Bass Institute of Technology. And I thought, well, I'll just go down there and study, because I wanted to be a studio musician. And I knew that's where it would happen, is in L.A.
Now, were you unhappy with touring, or you just thought that would be more lucrative or more towards your lifestyle you wanted?
More what I want. I just wanted more. I mean, everything was fine. I loved playing 5 nights a week. It was great. But somehow it just didn't seem like it was going to grow anywhere. So I was like, okay, I got to figure out the next thing that's happening. Obviously, it's in L.A. So I read the Billboard every week. I got some money together and moved to L.A. Funny enough that almost everybody in the band that I was in with Les, almost everybody in that band moved to L.A. within a year, separately. So I think they were feeling it too. It's like, oh, well, let's take it to the next level. And they all did in their own ways. Les moved down there. He lived there for many, many years in L.A. I was there. And that's kind of how it moved. But, of course, what do you do when you get to town? Well, I worked in a Volkswagen parts store to pay the rent. I delivered to L.A. Times early in the morning to pay the rent. It was a lot of years of that kind of stuff. I mean, that's not an unusual thing, I don't think.
No, I moved to LA for a year.
You did?
And the first thing is getting your foot in the door and just trying to find how you're going to make ends meet.
Yeah, it's hard.
And for me, I was trying to get into a restaurant, but then you go into the restaurant with your applications, because I was a bartender up here in Concord and moved down there, and then you get there and you're turning in your application, you see, just these male models hand in their application. You're like, yeah, I ain't got a prayer.
Yeah. Or these, like, they look like movie stars, these young girls.
Yeah, exactly. So just making sure you can pay rent first and foremost, and then the next step is, who do I talk to start making connections?
Right.
So how did you manage that?
Well, it's interesting because my goal was studio musician, but that didn't really happen the way that I was hoping it was going to happen. I did play on some studio dates and some TV stuff, but that was all because I knew somebody who kind of hired me in. I just, what I really realized is, just like your story with the restaurant and the, male and female models, from any street corner in Los Angeles, you can throw a rock and hit 3 amazing bass players, any street corner. The competition is just fierce down there. And I think I'm a pretty good bass player, but man, these guys were like a whole nother level. And then you talked about the guys that were actually doing the work in the studio, and those guys were just like Lee Sklar or any of these kind of guys. They're untouchable, and they're locked in there. So how do you break into that thing? It didn't happen for me like that at all. My course was a big circle around all that stuff. And the thing, I think, my big kind of moments came from working at Guitar Center, of all things. Had a job at Guitar Center. It was right in the beginning of MIDI. So, and I, from piano, I can play keyboards too. So I loved that whole technology thing when it happened. And I was like, I got to learn more. And so I would spend my time at Guitar Center figuring out all these different synthesizers and drum machines, all this stuff that was just coming out. And
now, did having a dad that worked at IBM, did that help you any? Because there's a lot of computer stuff in there, I was going to say.
It's funny. It really did.
Yeah.
Because I recall like being just a kid, young kid, like playing the chess game on the big mainframe computers and stuff. So I was comfortable with technology and kind of liked it too. So anyway, so the Guitar Center thing was a great opportunity for me to do that. And then one day some guy comes in, I'm showing him some synthesizer or something, and he's like, you seem to be pretty good with this stuff. Do you ever read the manuals? And I'm like, of course. That's the first thing I do is I read the manuals, when they come in. Well, I got this contract. I work with Yamaha, and they need me to proofread the manuals because they do the translation in Japan, and then before they put it out here, it's got to be proofread and kind of test it out too, like, is what they're saying true? Are you interested in that? Because I can't do it all myself. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm interested in that. So for about 1.5 years with this guy, they would send over the new synthesizer with the manual, like get to play with it and read the manual and then do the corrections.
Right. Man, that's funny. My grandfather was a pilot in the Army Air Corps, my mom's father. And he flew over Guam and went between those islands, and he would buy these home appliances that he'd find in Japan. And he actually saved all of the manuals because the English translation is so goddamn funny.
It's true.
It became stuff that was hung up in his cabin in Kirkwood or something like that.
That's so funny, man.
Yeah.
Because they tried their best.
Oh, totally. But I mean the terms they use, and in a lot of ways they're great terms. Like fighting sickness is what Americans say, and bring wellness to oneself is what the Germans. So when you try to do those translations, they end up being kind of amazing.
Yeah.
So it's got to be. Did you drink beers while you're fixing the manuals?
No,
like
unfortunately, I should have, but I didn't.
Right.
Didn't drink any beers then. Although I still like beer then.
Yeah.
So that was a big kind of break for me because all of a sudden now I'm some authority.
Yeah.
So it turned out that this Guitar Center gig really boosted my career because I became an authority on these synthesizers. And at the time, it was much more than just, here's push a button and now you get a sound, right? You really had to put some thought and know kind of synthesis to make these things work. So it was great for me because then I started to get calls, programming dates. And I knew some engineers and stuff. So, sometimes there'd be a date like, oh, Christopher Cross is down at the studio and they've got something and they don't know how to run it. Can you come down? Sure. So go down, do little tweaks. Everybody's impressed. And next thing you know, then I get another call to go somewhere else. And now you're doing whatever, many times I was called to Michael Jackson's compound on Havenhurst there. And come down, we're doing, we don't know how to get this drum machine to sync up with the tape. So all that technical stuff really paid off for me. That's what got me in the door to what I really wanted to do anyway.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And so what were some of the early synths for the keyboard enthusiasts like you got to work on that you were really excited about?
Oh my God. Well, my favorite synth sound of all time it was an Oberheim 4-voice, they called it, which was a small keyboard with 4 of these modules basically. And you hear it on like the early Weather Report records, a little bit with Return to Forever. It's just got this fat, meaty, and then a sawtoothy grit to it that's no other synthesizer has that. So I'm a big Oberheim fan, the early Oberheim days. The other one that I really liked was the Lindrum, of course, the LM1, the initial LM1 was pretty impressive. And a friend of mine actually had we called it a chip blower, which essentially was it was kind of like a sampler in a way, because you could, like if you had a recording or if you wanted to do something live, you put a little integrated circuit chip into this machine and you hit a button and you could record that sample onto the chip, because in those early Lindrums, each chip was a sample.
Now, were those compatible with many other brands, or was it just only within Lindrum?
Just it was the LM1, which was the original one. It kind of had a flat top, and then there was the Lindrum, and they were compatible on those 2 machines only. So those were unique. But the one that I really got excited about was the Lind 9000 when it came out, because it was also a sequencer, and it had a feel. It's hard to describe these things to people who don't use drum machines, but you think it's just like on off, robotic. But every machine has its own strange feel. And how do you attribute it to? It's how many times they're sampling the cycle, or just the way that the electronics work or the filters work. And the Lind drums always had a feel. I mean, even drummers will say, "Oh yeah, there's nothing like that Lind drum feel." Right?
So for those of us listening that don't know what that would be, could you give me some song examples where that's a protagonist?
Oh, you mean like the feel?
Yeah.
Just listen to any Prince song. That's all Lind drum.
Okay.
For the most part. And even though it can go, well, yeah, it's a drum machine, but it definitely has a feel. And Prince was very unique because he really knew how to use that machine to its advantage. Because there's little knobs and stuff that you could tweak for swing or for feel or for, you could just turn these knobs a little bit and then it would kind of come off grid. And it was like, wow. Or sometimes tuning the samples down. That was another unique thing. And I mean, now it's just, you can do whatever you want.
No, but tuning it without losing fidelity. So
That's
and pitch, right?
Yeah.
Was that the
No,
was that the
you could tune pitch.
Okay.
But not lose the fidelity.
Okay.
In fact, sometimes it made it even cooler. Like if you listen to, again, Prince, I think, is one of the best examples, because so many times he used that Lindrum side stick, and it's not a side stick. It's this weird knock sound. But it is the side stick tuned down. Same with when you hear these weird cowbell things that he did. It's like, that's not a cowbell. But yes, it is a cowbell. It's just turned down. It's just tuned a little bit. And it's like, it also lets it breathe somehow. Like it kept the fidelity of the sample, but it let something breathe. Like the timing might just be just a little tiny bit off. But it's a good off, as opposed to like, oh my God, everything's out of sync. No, it's like it's given it a humanity almost, in a way, this feel.
Kind of like if you listen to Count Basie and you put it on a grid, everything's equally back.
Yes, yeah.
Just equally off, and it has a personality to it, right?
It's so true. I mean, one of the things that I love about our modern technology, like using Pro Tools or Logic, is that you can take these old recordings and really look at them and see like what made it like that? Like, why does it feel a certain way? And 9 times out of 10, it's because the drummer is lagging on the 2 and 4. just enough.
Mhm.
You know.
Cool. So you're between Guitar Center. I'm sure there was a point where you're just like, look, I don't need to work for Guitar Center anymore. I'm going to be. Describe how you made that jump, and was it scary?
It was scary because I left Guitar Center without a plan. Really, I mean, these other things were happening. I was getting these other gigs, but the regular income was going to go away. Now, I do have to say, and this is not to fault Guitar Center, but the way the pay structure works at Guitar Center is very unique in all of retail, other than used car lot, because they treated it like a used car lot. You know, you got a very, very minimum wage, like below minimum wage, to show up. All your money was made on commission. So if you have to be a pretty good negotiator, and they'd used all the same tricks. I mean, you probably know this from Guitar Center, that they just, you want to buy this synthesizer? Oh yeah, the list is here, but let me go back to my manager and see if I can like knock off a couple of dollars for you, right? Then you go back in the back, you sit there with the manager, smoke a cigarette, and hey, well, you think these guys are going to really buy this thing? I don't know, maybe, I don't know. Let's give a couple bucks off. But it was very sleazy and cutthroat, you know. That being said, we all need Guitar Centers, you know.
The infrastructure they created and the industry push that they have created, I will never in a million years knock them for that.
No.
And what I will say too is, when I used to go to Guitar Center, there was one in Concord where I lived, and Pleasant Hill opened right before that. I mean, that was the place. That was the place to go, and I got my first guitar at Guitar Center when it was in before it was on Van Ness. I think it was on Market. And so Guitar Center's been nothing but great to Danville Music, I will say too.
Yeah.
They've been super cool. But yeah, they're a pillar in music history.
Absolutely.
For better or for worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always find it fascinating when people talk about the old days versus how it is now, because many of our reps that we deal with, from PRS to Taylor, almost every one of them started at Guitar Center.
Yeah.
Because that seemed to be a stepping board. It's almost like boot camp for what you're going to do afterwards.
It's true. And it was, I mean, it certainly wasn't the only game in town, but it was the game in town.
Yeah.
You know, you could go there, get whatever you needed. They had stuff. I mean, let's we're taking this like Birdwalk now about music stores, right? Okay. I remember there were some other great music stores here in the Bay Area, like the Music Man bass that I told you that I bought. I drove all the way up to San Rafael to Bananas at Large. You remember that place?
Still there. Yeah, I've been there before. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why I went up there, but they had the one that I wanted, and so that's where I went. Also, Don Ware's Music City.
I never went there.
You remember it though, right? The name.
I know the name. We had Spitzer's Music in Concord, so that was when I went to. But there's also Starving Musician. That was.
Oh yeah.
That was cool. But those are the big ones that I remember.
Yeah, there's one other that I can't remember. They were in Hayward for a minute, but anyway, the whole music store thing was it's really interesting to me, because it becomes a community. If it's a good store, mm-hmm. it creates a community around it, and that's, I think, unique. Nobody's going to like the Safeway for a community.
Right.
It's really cool. And I've told you before, and I just got to say it again, that what you've done with Danville Music has just been amazing. I mean, it's always been a great store, but everything that you've done has elevated this thing to me, it feels like the premier guitar shop in Northern California.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And huge props to the crew that I'm working with. Cameron, my partner, mm-hmm. Dave, Nate, Lance, Dave Tyler. Yeah. Dave Tyler worked at Leo's Music. When you brought that up, I thought about that too. but yeah, it's been a fun journey. So, yeah. And we're hopefully it's onward and upward. But
it seems like it is to me.
Oh, Thank you.
Guys are kicking ass over there. It's great.
Right.
Yeah. So that was my Guitar Center story, and yeah, it was scary to bail out of that.
Yeah.
But I always had a feeling like this is going to be okay. In fact, the way that I got into Guitar Center in 1984, like 81 to 84, I worked at a company in LA. This is through another musician friend of mine. It was a startup that did date books, and date books were pretty popular. There was the day, I forget what the other one was called. But this was, Harper House was a company. Day Runner was the book. I don't know if you remember that or not, but it was a big book. It had a calendar. It had all these organizing things, and it got super popular. But literally, we started in the garage, right? It was a startup. And I did that for 3 years. Went up the ranks with them, helped them build their business. And again, just like being here in the Bay Area with the music scene, I was like, okay, this is as far as I'm going to go with this. So what am I going to do? Well, I just said, I'm bailing out. I'm going to Europe for a year. I'm going to put my bass on my back, hopefully get some gigs, maybe meet some people. I had some friends, that I had met from Switzerland and Italy. So I went to Europe for a year. Disaster musically, because I could not get anything happening musically. Amazing personally, though, as far as like developing life skills, and I learned to speak Italian. I went to school and met a bunch of people, and felt very adult at that point. Right? It was just like weird, like, oh, this is me now, not anything else.
And how old were you at this point?
This is, well, let's see, 84. I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s. So when I came back from that, there was nothing. Like, I had no job, I had no work. And that's how I got into Guitar Center, is a friend of mine who was working there said, yeah, come over to Guitar Center and work. I worked at the Sherman Oaks store for a while, and then I worked at the Hollywood store, but not the Hollywood store that everybody knows, the big with the rock walk and all that, because it used to be in this dumpy building across the street. And
is that where they had the amplifiers? Like, was that where Mesa ended up taking over? Or something like that?
Okay. Across the street. Exactly.
I've been there
right.
before. Yeah,
because there's a really interesting little music row there with all like Mesa's there, and I think what was the other guitar? Carvin had a thing over there. So they made a little music row out of that. But that's the Guitar Center that I was working in. Okay. And anyway, so did that for a while, like I already said, and then off to the next thing. But what's the next thing going to be? I'm doing these manuals. I'm somehow starting to break into the programming thing. And you'll find as we continue this conversation that my pattern has been, I'm a very adventurous guy in terms of like how I want to do my life, right? I like to take chances and gambles. And they usually go about 3 years. Like these projects, I've just noticed for myself that 3 years is kind of like a run for me. Like I'm going to do something for 3 years, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, then I'm going to do something else for 3 years, right? So I was doing that. I got a job. Through Guitar Center, one of these like, oh, he's the guy who knows about the synthesizers, right? Through one of these, I hooked up with a new producer who had just gotten to town from New York, who wanted to set up a little writing room, not much bigger than this room here. And he had a couple of synthesizers, and he didn't understand anything. So for about 3 years, again, I worked with that guy one-on-one. And we went from him not knowing anything or having any work, and he paid me, it was a pittance. I mean, like $20 a day, $30 a day. But I didn't care. I was in the mix with the guy, right?
Yeah.
And he started to move. Like he started to roll a little bit. We did a couple of Japanese groups that came over. We did Vonda Shepard. I don't know if you know who she is, but she was a pretty big artist back in the 80s and 90s. She's the one who wrote the theme song for Ally McBeal.
Oh, cool.
Right? So we did an album with her that was really great. And then, it's funny enough, that this guy's best friend from New York was Bruce Willis. So Bruce Willis comes to town, sleeps on this guy's couch when he's auditioning for Moonlighting, his first big show, gets the gig. The next thing you know, everybody wants to throw money at the Bruce Willis project, right? So we did an album with Bruce Willis that went to #1. It was on Motown.
That's awesome.
Crazy. And so now I'm like moving closer because all of a sudden I see my credit on the album, assistant producer. And I'm like, oh yeah, now we're starting to talk here.
So now you know your thing. This is my next move.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, certainly I always loved being in the studio. Even, I swear to God, Spencer Chan could show you a picture of me like in Idaho when we were playing at the Holiday and going to the university recording studio to make a demo, right? I always loved the studio, and I loved recording. So for me, it was like, okay, now I'm getting close to the dream. And that for me was a big break. That project lasted 3 years. And then I was like out in the wilderness again. It was not a good ending with this guy. It was lawsuits and craziness, but whatever. It's, So I'm destitute, no money, my girlfriend, or wife at the time, actually, we were already married. She's like, you gotta make some money, man. I can't. She worked in the music business. She's like, I can't carry this burden all by myself, man. You got to get out and make some money. So thinking. I literally had a dream at night. And this is like, I want to say it's around 1987. I had a dream about starting a music business in the Soviet Union, of all things. It was just barely starting to open up over there. This was Glasnost time and Gorbachev. And
I was going to say, this is 87, so it's like 2 years before they brought the wall down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 3 actually.
That's a crazy time to want to go to Russia.
I know. and again, it's one of these like roll the dice, take a gamble. Somehow that was part of my personality, is like, you think it can't be done? Watch me, And so, of course, no money, but starting out, what are you going to do? I start to network. I start to meet some people who have done some things. I go to UCLA for their summer session, 3 months of 8 hours a day, intensive Russian language study. And eventually met, through my wife, a guy who had some money and said, I think that's a pretty interesting idea. I'll give you some money to explore that Russian thing, but I just bought a building on Ventura Boulevard, and it's a studio. There's nothing in it. It's just an empty shell, but it was Freddie Perrin's studio, who produced all the Peaches and Herb stuff, Reunited and all that. All that stuff was cut in this room. And I need you, I'll help you if you help me outfit the studio, create a business, a recording studio business, and get that running. And I was like, what's better? It's my dream of the Soviet Union, and I get to have my own recording studio. So we did that. And it's just a crazy time. You can imagine, between literally out buying every piece of gear that we need in the studio, I got to like fulfill all my dreams gear-wise. I mean, not everything. I would have loved to have had like a Neve console, but all the other stuff, like these Mastering Lab Genelec speakers, not Genelec, Tannoys. These Tannoys with Mastering Lab crossovers, and all the outboard drummer gates, all this stuff that was really hot at the time. I got to like buy all that stuff and build this studio, and we did some good stuff. I mean, we had some pretty cool people.
Where was this located?
It was on the corner of Colfax and Ventura, so Studio City, California.
And where Russia comes in, you would bring Russian artists over to record? Russian
artists never came over. But I spent the majority of 1989 over there searching for my thing that it turned out like, let's do a business in the Soviet Union. My dream, right? Well, that dream became, I'm going to start the first independent record label in the Soviet Union. And so that was my goal. Start an independent record label. And we did. It never got profitable, but we were actually able to do it in concert with Melodia, which was the state label. They only had like the state recording label.
So I have several questions about this.
Okay.
So I imagine the content was something that would be heavily surveilled, so to speak.
Oh yeah.
Like as far as like what sort of messages the artists were presenting and all that sort of stuff. What were, in your mind before you went there, what were the hurdles you thought there would be, and then what are the hurdles were actually surprises for you?
Well, I think that going there, first of all, like I just thought the first hurdle is just, how do I even get a visa to go there? And how do I break through because we called it the Iron Curtain at the time, right? How do you get through the Iron Curtain? Well, they let me be there. Luckily, I had met a couple of people who kind of knew what was happening over there, Russians. And so I was able to, of course, get that. Then it was like, okay, well, how do you meet people? How do you network? There's no nightclubs. There's no rehearsal studios for bands. Everything music-wise was very much underground. And I think that was one of the biggest surprises, not so much a hurdle, but it was a huge surprise for me, is that the scene over there was really vibrant. There was a lot going on. It's just that you couldn't see it like in the daylight. It was like cockroaches, The minute that the officials come, scattered.
Okay, so clearly if it's going to be live music, you have to put it in a club of some sort. Now, were there old abandoned factories that people would set up in, or
basements
and stuff like that? Okay,
yeah.
So that's where the scene would be.
That was the scene, yeah.
Okay, and would they be impromptu shows or things they were trying to keep quiet until it actually happened, or sounds like a covert sort of operation.
It was very covert because you could die, you could be disappeared, and so it had to be on the quiet. But the like you said, like what did you think was the hurdle and what really was the hurdle?
Yeah.
I went there with no expectations, like a typical idiot musician. I don't care about the money. I just want to make the art, right?
Yeah.
And of course, now at my advanced age, I realize that there's got to be a balance there. You have to do both. But at that time, I was just like, no, I'm going to do something that's going to change the world. I don't care about the money, right? So when I got there, I found that I was asked to be more a businessman than a music producer or an entrepreneur, because they wanted to do business. And when I say they, I'm talking about the gray market, because it was kind of like the state level thing, and then there's this gray market, and that's like where all the music gear came from. That was, don't want to say smuggled in, but like if you wanted to buy a Gibson guitar, you had to get it on the gray market because it would somehow come in on a shipment of oranges from Finland, and nobody knew about it, and the back door and all that kind of thing. Have to pay cash, hard currency. So I quickly got a lesson in business, and I think the biggest unexpected hurdle was, how do you get money out of a communist country that's closed off from the rest of the world? And I got a very good education. Because what we did is we realized that the bands that we were signing, it was going to make some money in Russia, or the Soviet Union actually still at that time. But we weren't going to get rich off of that. We had to find another way to support that business. So what we did is we brought tape and empty cassettes and machines that wound cassettes. So because they didn't have cassettes, they couldn't get cassettes. So it was like, okay, we're going to bring that in. We did. We brought that in. That kind of gave us the money to pay for these bands. We brought a couple of American bands over, did some tours within. So we were able to kind of make this money appear, right? Now, how do we get the money out? Well, we bought a partial interest in a plywood factory, and the plywood would get made internally, shipped to Finland, sold for hard currency, and it would go to our company outside the Soviet Union.
Wow.
It was like I didn't even think about that when I went there. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't thinking about what am I going to do for money.
Yeah, they're not teaching that in Harvard business class.
No. But funny enough, one of the best examples of American entrepreneurism is Armand Hammer, who of course was a oil guy, right? Occidental Petroleum. He was a big I don't want to say supporter, but he had a lot of involvement in the Soviet Union. He brought pencils to the Soviet Union. Same kind of deal. Like we brought cassettes, he brought pencils. And of course, he couldn't get money out for the pencils, so he got vodka. And he was able to sell Stolichnaya. That's how that happened. Same thing happened with Pepsi. Like Coke and Pepsi, around the world, big competition, right? Yeah. Coke didn't want to do whatever the Russians did. They wanted their money. Pepsi came in and said, we'll give you the Pepsi. What can you give us that we can sell on the outside market? Well, our deal with Arm & Hammer and the Stolichnaya vodka just passed. You want to take over Stolichnaya vodka for the rest of the world? Sure. So that's how Pepsi got their money out, was traded for vodka.
Wild.
Crazy shit, right?
Wild. That's great. Well, looks like our beers are getting more and more empty. Is now a good time for a good time for a break, you think?
Sure.
All right, let's do a break, and then we'll be right back.
Oh, great.
Happy New Year, ladies and gentlemen, from your pals at Danville Music, your source of the best guitars and music-related accessories here in the Bay Area and around the globe at Danville Music. DanvilleMusic.com, your local music store.
All right. Yeah. Well, we are recording at Hop Grenade in Concord, and thank you so much to the Hop Grenade and Justin and the crew for allowing us to record here. So let's throw a bone out there too.
Absolutely. I mean, there's nothing like having a chat over a beer.
I don't think there's anything better.
No, I agree.
All right. So we left off with Russia. So I'd like to know how many years you were in Russia and what was the defining moment that made you say, okay, it's probably time for me to go back to the United States. If you won't get killed.
Thank you for reminding me of that very unpleasant time of my life.
Oh, man. You want to hear about the time my dog died too?
Yeah.
I'll tell you about that after.
Okay, maybe a fair trade. As I said before, I tend to do things in these 3-year projects, right? And so it was a 3-year project for me, from start to finish, from when I decided. I had the dream, basically, and then to when it collapsed. And it was all, as I mentioned before, like with this guy, he had the studio. So I got the studio up and running. I had my good friend running the studio for me. We had lots of dates that were coming in. We did a lot of cool recording in the studio. I was going back and forth to Russia. I go for a couple months at a time. And in the year 1989, I would say that I spent 7 months out of that year in Soviet Union over the course of a couple of trips, because we had bands on tour over there. We were doing our record business, and we were doing our cassette/plywood business. It was all cylinders were popping at that time, right? So New Year's Eve, 1989, going into 1990, I had come back, and then I made a trip back there. I was going to land on New Year's Eve of 1989 to 90. We had a band there, an American band that had been on tour. We were going to throw this giant party in one of these big Soviet-style hotels. Like, you can just imagine the Stalinist architecture. It's like this right across from what they called the Russian White House. This big hotel. We were going to throw this big party, right? So I walk into the party. And this is how crazy the shit was. I had to bring a case of Evian water with me, because the water that you would get there, like the mineral water, was so salty in the bottle that, like, the band was like, we can't drink this stuff. We need water, right? So I literally brought them a case of Evian water on the plane, right? So walk in with this case of Evian water. I see the band. They're all happy to see me. Oh, you brought the water? Great, right? Everybody's partying it up in the ballroom at the hotel. Then I see my investor, the guy who had the money, right? And he walks up to me. He's, oh, I'm so glad you made it. And by the way, in those days, the trip, there were no direct flights like New York to Moscow. Hell no. No, there was nothing. It was like a 24-hour travel day where I had to fly from LA to Chicago to somewhere in Yugoslavia, spend the night in Yugoslavia, and then fly into Moscow. So it was, 24 hours of travel. So I see the investor, and he's like, oh, great, you made it. The tour's going great. Band's happy. Our business partners are very happy with us. And by the way, when I go back to LA, I'm leaving tomorrow to go back to LA. Studio is shutting down. Business is going to be closed. And you have 2 weeks to wrap up everything here. There's no more money. And I was like, what the fuck happened? Well, it turned out, he didn't tell me the story, but we heard the story later of what really happened. This guy, I thought he was wealthy. It turns out his wife was the one with money. Old Texas oil money. So like serious old money, right? He had been convincing his wife that all of the businesses were failing. And so every month he's like, honey, I need another 20,000. Honey, I need another 50,000. Honey, I need another whatever, right? He'd been taking that money and putting it in a Cayman Island bank account away from her. And not only that, he kept drugging her that she didn't know. So he was giving her sedatives so that she didn't know what was going on. She thought something was funny because he kept asking for this money every month. So she put a private investigator on it. She knew something was funny about her health. She thought she was sick. But the private investigator said, no, he's drugging you. He's putting your money in the Cayman Islands bank account. And by the way, he's also having sex with underage boys.
Oh, my God.
And so that's what happened. And so I saw that guy at that party, at the New Year's Eve party, and never saw him again. Like, never saw him again. Well, one time I did see him again in an airport, and I turned around and walked the other way because I was like, that guy, he's out of my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's how that broke down. And I came back 2 weeks later. So the band, they're just the band, right? They were trying to just make sure that they can do their thing on stage every night. And they did. We finished the tour. It was all fine. Come back. While I was there, before I got back, my friend who was running the studio for me, I called him. And the way that you had to make a phone call in Russia in those days is you go to your floor lady. Like every floor had like a monitor lady, who, a cleaning lady, but really KGB, right?
Okay.
And you had to say, okay, I want to call America. Okay, we'll let you know. And that means that anytime from 5 minutes from now until 2 days from now, there will be a phone call. And you don't know when it's coming. It's just like you hope you're in your room when it happens. Mm-hmm. But they come and they knock on your door. Your phone call is ready. So literally, I would be out of touch because I couldn't make a direct call. So I had to do this whole dance to get the phone call. So I did all this was going down. I called my buddy back in LA and said, what's going on with the studio? And he's like, oh yeah, they're coming in. They're taking all the gear next week. What do you want me to take for you? And like an idiot, I said, no, that's not me. I'm not going to steal shit. And I regret every day that I lost those Tannoy Mastering Lab crossover monitor. That to me is a gear loss for me, that I lost those speakers in that thing. But when I got back to LA, I went to the studio. There was an entrance and there was glass. You could kind of see in a little bit. I went there, I looked, emptied. The whole place had been emptied out. So that's how that broke down.
Right.
Crazy, right?
That is crazy. So now you have to do some mental gymnastics to pick yourself back up and say, what do I do now?
Exactly.
And so then at that point, what's your next step? What are you thinking?
Well, I spent a week in bed, basically, thinking like my life is over.
Right.
Then I start to go back to what I knew, which is like, wait a second, I know people in town. They know me, Oh, by the way, well, no, I'll add that later. But yes, so I'm starting to figure out, like, reach out to some friends, just see what's going on, find another path. But even before this, something I didn't mention, but back in the 80s, when I got back from my trip to Europe and the Guitar Center and all that kind of thing, one of the other things I did is for about a year and a half, I was the production manager for Jose Feliciano. This was my first road gig. Like, they trusted me. Oh, you know how to run it's so funny because like in a little bar in L.A., Jose was going to do some private party thing, and I don't know why, but I knew the keyboard player, and he said, like, come mix the sound at this goofy little club for Jose. Okay. And they liked what I did. So they remembered that. So all of a sudden it's like, hey, I think we need some help on our tour. Like, our other guy has left. Can you come out and do this stuff? I'm like, well, what do you want me to do? Oh, we just want you to, get the, help the band get from the airport to the venue or the hotel or whatever. Make sure the gear is all set up correctly. And then we want you to mix the monitors and mix the front of house. And I'm like, what? What you want me to do all this at the same time? Well, yeah, that's what the other guy did. So I got this gig where I literally would, like, I'm traveling with everybody, including Jose, shuffle them to the hotel, go to the gig. Sometimes, in fact, it's like in the Dominican Republic and stuff, literally going then to choose the PA system, like find the gear with the local promoter, make sure the gear is set up correctly, make sure our stuff that we traveled with was set up correctly. Band comes in for sound check. I start mixing with the monitors. We didn't have I was the only guy.
Yeah.
It was me and Jose's handler, basically. So I mixed the monitors into sound check, and then the gig would start. Jose comes out. I mix the monitors for 2 or 3 songs to make sure that everybody's dialed in. Then I go out and mix front of house because the local guy has been like scrambling while I'm mixing monitors. So then I go out and I mix the front of house. So the reason I bring it up is because I did have some road experience, and not just being a case humper, but I've sat in all the chairs. I was a production manager. I was a monitor mixer. I was a front of house mixer. I was a tour manager. I did it all.
Well, after listening to just this much of the podcast and listening to speak about it, I can't think of anybody who has a toolbox like you've got.
Well, thank you.
And I mean that.
Thank you.
I mean that in the most sincere way. Like, not just trying to make money in a communist country that's falling apart. Like,
Yeah.
that's That's a, name a time in your job experience where you encountered something very difficult and how you overcome it. Like, how do you top that? Right. You can't top that, right?
Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty impressive when I say it back myself. You know what I mean?
Man, that's amazing. So, and clearly you go through a time where you try to make it in Russia. You had a dream about it. You think that's what you're supposed to do. That's what your destiny is. You come back. You've been betrayed by a business partner. To pick yourself up from that, that's also, not only do you have the toolbox of experience, but your personality type and your headspace and your ability to pick yourself up. That sort of grit, you ain't going to get that from a college degree, are you?
No. But I'll tell you what, at the time, it didn't feel like a badge of honor. It felt like complete failure. Yeah. Especially the Russian thing, because it was really like, you have a crazy dream in the middle of the night, and then you fulfill it, and it's like, oh my God, and then it just drops off a cliff. It was traumatic for me, and that's why I'm saying, what did I do? I stayed in bed for a week and tried to figure it out. Then I kind of clawed my way back up, and just by chance, a guy that I actually knew from up here, an engineer who was in L.A., like all of us, relocated to L.A. He called me to, this was my first trip to not Neverland, but the Jackson family compound on Havenhurst.
Okay. Please describe what that's like.
Oh, well. Well, because I've been to Neverland too, and I've done stuff there. This was the family home. So it kind of had this fairy tale vibe to it, the house itself. Mm-hmm. And there was a big garage. And then there was a nice, not huge, but maybe, I don't know, maybe 3 times the size of this room, studio. So it was pretty packed in with a console. It was packed. No live room, just a vocal booth, essentially. That was the studio. But then you open up the door, and now you're in the candy room with every kind of candy you can imagine. Literally, like a candy shop. Mm-hmm. And that was, because Michael liked candy and kids, right? And I remember, so the point is that I got hired to do some sound design on the Jackson 5 record. That's where I went this first time, right? And I remember being outside the studio, like in the driveway area, and here comes like some guy, one of the family's assistants, I don't know, some guy, walking a tiger. Just down the driveway, walking a tiger, That's the kind of crazy stuff that went on at that house, right?
Right.
But what was great about that gig, I really appreciated it because I needed the gig. I needed some money. But that got him, he saw me work, and he was like, oh, you're really good at this stuff. He was friends with some guys who had just done Michael Jackson's Bad tour as keyboard techs, programmers, right? Sound design guys. And so he put me in touch with them. And they were just starting to grow. It was 2 guys, but funny enough, they got financing from one of the guys who helped develop and was the executive producer on Home Improvement. Remember that show with Tim Allen, right? Yeah. So one of those guys, the executive producer, rich guy, he's like, oh yeah, I kind of want to be in the music business, right? So he gave him some money after they did this tour, and we had a house. They rented a house out in North Hollywood, and we built out a studio, or they built out a studio in there. So they had the studio, and they still did some gigs, right? Some of these road gigs, because they were known as like, oh, these are the keyboard guys.
Okay, and let me, just for listeners' sake, it's not like you went out and bought a Nord and you went through presets.
No.
Some of these look like you were like a switchboard operator from the 1920s.
Very
right?
true. Very true.
And so I imagine that was not a skill that was a dime a dozen. Like,
I think in greater LA, I was 1 in 10 or 15 people who could do that shit at that time.
Which in a city as big as LA, you were a gem then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was the days of a lot of money flowing, records, there was the $1 million budgets, and you get a call, and then bring all these synths, and they were literally like the size of an industrial refrigerator, these racks, like a double door thing. You wheel all these things in there, you plug it all in. Okay, now we need a string sound. Tweak, punch, punch, punch.
Yeah, it's like the difference between a computer room and a desktop computer,
Yeah,
right?
exactly right.
Right.
That's exactly what it was, right? So anyway, so back to the story about I met these guys, and they were cool. Like we liked each other because we could talk the talk, like we had the language, right? And so they called me one day and they said, hey, you know, we've got we can't do this thing. It's just a little programming gig in town. Maybe, you know, would you mind going over and you know, doing it? It's just, you know, some keyboard mapping and some sampling and some programming of some sounds. Sure, yeah. Where am I going? Oh, Culver Studios. Okay, fine. I go over there. It's Don Henley. And so I whip it up. Everyone was very impressed. They asked me to come back the next day and do some more. I did some more the next day. And then there was talk like, oh, well, you know, do you want to go out on the tour with these guys? And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. I'd love to go out with Don Henley.
So this is right after he separated from the Eagles?
Yeah. This was like it was post Boys of Summer. It was like the next album after Boys of Summer.
Okay.
Now, just the insider information, Don Henley, straight up asshole, okay? Everybody will tell you that. But amazingly creative guy. And we all love him, you know, so you can love the art and hate the artist. I think that's a fair. And everybody I know that's worked for Don Henley says the same thing. That guy's a fucking asshole.
Yeah, okay.
But we love him, you know.
I was hoping you'd say you worked with Mike Campbell on Boys of Summer.
No.
He's one of my favorite guitar players.
I love Mike Campbell.
He's
man.
great.
Love Mike Campbell.
But I mean, Don Henley, yeah. I mean, truly a legend. I play in the Eagles tribute band. I don't know if you know that or not.
Come on.
Yeah,
You know.
So it's so much fun playing his music.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing.
So you do Don Henley's album
Well, no, it was for the tour.
for the tour.
Programming
Okay.
for the tour. Right?
Okay.
And when it came time, in typical LA fashion, somebody's brother-in-law got the inside track on doing the road gig, because I'd already done all the heavy lifting, all the programming, right?
Yep.
So now somebody else got the gig. So I was like, oh, bummer, man. But then, not too long after that, they came to me and said, you know, we heard that there might be an opening for a sound designer or programmer for Stevie Nicks' tour. Are you interested in that? Yeah. I mean, I needed money, man. I was desperate. I needed money. So I'm like, yes, of course, whatever. Throw me in. And somehow these guys were able to go in there. Now, I'm not proud of the fact, but they literally pushed somebody out of the gig to get me on the gig. So somebody lost the gig because of me. Mm-hmm. But I was a better fit anyway, I think. I mean, you know, I'm not guilty or anything, but it's like they literally like wedged me in. And next thing I know, I'm on tour with Stevie Nicks for 3 months doing her thing.
Awesome.
It was awesome. And it's funny because like you know the songs, but when they're happening in front of you, it was a really interesting band too. Pito Escovedo, you know who Pito is? He's one of the sons of Pete Escovedo. Mm-hmm. He was the MD and the percussionist. Great guy. He also had, so he pulled some Bay Area guys in that band. So it was funny because like here I am living in LA, now I'm working on the road with these guys. They're from the Bay Area, so we could talk about all the Bay Area stuff,
cool.
Right? They had Eddie M. He was playing sax and keys. He's become like a really big remixer guy now. This other guy whose name I can't remember was the other keyboard player. There were the Lennon brothers who were sons of the Lennon sisters. There's like two brothers that played guitar and bass. They were there. They were great. But it was just great to hear these songs that we've grown up with, you know, all the Edge of 17 of her solo career and also Dreams and all the Fleetwood Mac stuff.
Edge of 17, that's actually one of my favorite guitar tones of all time.
Oh, my God.
Single note.
Yep.
I love that. You wouldn't happen to know what year was recorded.
I didn't.
To get that tone.
No.
Shit.
No, I can't help you there. Sorry.
No, but I remember hearing the first time just thinking, oh, man, this is great. But yeah, we grew up with Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
My dad played guitar. We used to play Rhiannon together, like those guitar
so
parts
great.
and the Lindsey Buckingham stuff. That's. I mean, she is definitely cemented in as being one of the most iconic female vocalists, certainly.
Yeah. And she's getting her flowers now, too. I mean, like, everybody from Brandi Carlile on down is just, like, celebrating Stevie Nicks because she's amazing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But to be honest, if we're talking about Fleetwood Mac, my favorite person in the band?
Mick Fleetwood?
No. Christine McVie.
Oh, yeah.
I think she wrote the best songs, the ones that she sang were kind of my favorites, Over My Head. And I mean, I don't know, there's something was special about her. I really liked her. Anyway, so I'm on the tour. Are we continuing on with the story? Is that the idea?
Sure.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. I love the interruption. It was great. I'm on the tour. Tour ends. We had a couple of slackers on that crew too, like that didn't want to push cases into the truck and stuff. Me, I'm a hungry guy. I just want a paycheck. I'm doing everything I can. I'm showing up. I'm pushing cases. I'm doing whatever it takes, right? And the crew chief noticed that about me, that I was like the only one who was like willing to push cases into the truck and stuff. And so the tour ends, and he says to me, this is one of those, like, you meet one person and they change your life, right? This guy changed my life. He said, I'm going from here to a Barry Manilow tour that's just starting up. Why don't you come along with me? And I'm immediately like, Barry Manilow? Wait a second, I was just on Don Henley and Stevie Nicks. Isn't that guy like the schmaltzy guy? No, you'll see. It's a good tour. It's fun. We'll have fun. Mm-hmm. He was pitching me like that. You and I are going to do it. We were going to be we were the full crew, like for everybody. Like, you're the full crew. We'll have fun. It'll be a great time. You'll see, man. And I'm like, well, I need the money. That's for sure. So, okay, I'll do it. Even though I was questionable about it, It was a Barry Manilow tour called Showstoppers. And what he did is he took Broadway songs and made them like his songs. And he took his songs and made them like Broadway songs. And I saw that happen. And I saw how creative he was. And something changed in my opinion, like quickly, that this guy's the real deal, man. This is not some schmaltzy guy. He is the real deal. He's dedicated, and he worked so hard at it, and he kept showing up and was concerned about every little detail. And I was like, you know what? I'm okay with this. In fact, I'm super impressed with this guy. And so at the end, I've never done this before or since. I literally wrote him a letter at the end of the tour and just said how surprised I was about who he really was, and the talent, his ability, his drive, the fact that everything was music to him left an impression on me that I really respected, right? Now, he never wrote me back or anything, but somehow it was like, wow, I'm really glad I made that decision. I'm glad that this guy, John Bunker, talked me into coming onto the thing. Well, come to find out that would then fulfill all the other dreams that I had in life. I didn't know it at the time. I just thought, like, I'm just pushing cases and turning knobs on synthesizers, right? Also, it was a very challenging synth gig because it was 3 keyboard players and a percussionist playing a cat, like a mallet cat, that were supposed to sound like an orchestra. And this is before anybody was doing playback or anything, right? So I had to make these 3 keyboard players sound like an orchestra. And they all had a double wide, 5-foot high rack with 1 million boxes in there. And it worked. I mean, somehow I made it work, and it sounded great. He liked that. About 6 months later after the tour, his management got in touch with me and said, he's having a little trouble with his home studio. Could you go up and set him straight a little bit with his home studio? I'm like, sure. So I went up to his house in Bel Air. He was living in Bel Air at the time. And he had a Akai 1212. Do you remember that recorder at all?
The Akai?
Yeah. Yeah. And it used like a beta cassette or something, or a VHS cassette. That's how it recorded, right?
Well, it wasn't. Oh, yeah. It's almost like a predecessor to the ADAT, right?
Yes, it was pre-ADAT.
Okay, gotcha.
But it had a built-in 12-channel mixer.
Okay.
It was a goofy box, man.
I had a Tascam 424. I remember.
Oh, yeah.
One of those things.
Listen, those things are great.
Yeah.
They're amazing. And this was great for him because it gave him a way to do something, get his ideas down. So I straightened him out. I showed him some stuff, and whatever, blah, blah, blah. But he liked it. He liked what I did. So I kept getting called back to come up there. Can you help him record something? Can you help him do a vocal? Can you help him whatever? Can you put in a new studio? I've probably built 4 different studios for that guy with all the DA88s and Studio Vision Pro, which, obviously that was an opcode product that's long gone, but it was one of the first digital recording in the computer music things, right? So I've built lots of studios for him and done lots of things, but it eventually led to, he was having me come on his TV dates and just stand behind the mixer, because with TV dates, you can't touch the console. It's all union stuff, right? You know from the radio days, like you can't touch anything. You just have to comment, right? But I'm good at that. I get along with people, right? So I go on these TV dates with him in New York. We do the Today Show or the Oprah Winfrey Show in Chicago, whatever. And I just, I tell the guy, hey, he likes reverb. Turn up the reverb, and, that kind of stuff. It was great, and he really liked it. But I did then get a call, again, back to these same guys, the two guys that were on the Michael Jackson tour that got me into these gigs, right? They called up, because I always said, man, if Michael ever goes on tour again, I'd love to do that tour. And so they called me up. This is before it was announced. They said, hey, looks like Michael's going back out. Do you want to do it? Because they didn't want to do it. They wanted to run the studio and do that stuff. They didn't want to do the road gigs anymore. So you want to do the road gig? I'm like, hell yeah, I'm in. If you can get me in there, I'm in. Well, the guy that they worked for, Greg Gaines, was one of their clients. He's a keyboard player, right? Very well-known studio guy. He's like Quincy Jones's First Call. He's on so many records, Greg. And he's a great guy. He started with Stevie Wonder and all that. Amazing keyboard player. I always say, with Greg is because I've listened to him extensively in headphones, mixing him live on these gigs, right? He's the only guy that I've ever heard where he makes plenty of mistakes, but every mistake sounds like it belongs there. You know what I mean? It's never a clam.
He's a wizard.
He's like a wizard. It's incredible what he does, Anyway, so
to back up on that, I get the impression, and tell me if I'm wrong, that Michael Jackson is the sort of guy who will hear it. Like if you make a mistake, he would hear that. Would I be wrong?
I don't think you're wrong, but I will say that he was not a super involved guy.
Really?
Barry Manilow, on the other hand, will hear not only that it's the wrong note, but it's the wrong rhythm in one little thing. Michael, yeah, sometimes he would say something, you're like, did he really hear that? And he did. But most of the time, you'd be lucky to see him show up for a rehearsal. We would have a month of rehearsal time on a soundstage, full production, and that guy would come in on the last day. Now, that doesn't mean that he's not off rehearsing his dancing at a dance studio or something. He wasn't a lazy guy.
Right.
But he's also not so into the granular of the music part. He hires the people that he knows are going to do the job, and he expects them to do the job.
Right.
I mean, that's not to say that there's not some shit that went down musically, but
Well, I just remember. So first of all, my earliest memory of listening to music and just being fully excited about it was Thriller.
Oh my God!
I was born in 1980, so I was 4 years old when I heard Thriller, and just listening to that song Thriller and the rest of the album. Heard the first time I ever heard a Beatle was on a Michael Jackson album.
Right? Now that's funny.
but and I remember from there, I was inspired by that, but even from there, I remember in my more adult years seeing outtakes of We Are the World. And I remember there's some great just behind the scenes footage of every singer, and they're making mistakes, and that you can tell they're being pitchy. And every time Michael walked up to the microphone, perfect. Every time, perfect.
Yeah.
So I would assume that he would be somebody who would want his tentacles and everything. And I've heard that when he was doing The Wiz with Quincy, Quincy would talk about what an amazing and very deliberately interested in all aspects of production during that.
Yeah.
So you're telling me at this point in Dangerous, he just basically hired people that he trusted and said, I'm going to take a back seat. Like, why do you think he did that?
Well, when I say that, I mean musically.
Okay.
All the other aspects, the theatrical part of the show, the choreography part of the show, the flow, the pyro, that stuff is what he was paying attention to.
Right.
The music, he hired the best. I mean, really, like, it was a stellar lineup on the band, but little insider secret, a lot of tracks on that tour too.
Okay.
So the music always paid off without a doubt. Every time, the music was great.
Now, on the Dangerous tour, did you notice a big difference on how involved you had to be with keyboard production versus maybe even 5 years before that?
Yeah. I mean, here's the crazy thing about like how I even came into that gig is there was just a hint that Greg Fillinganes was going to be on the gig. He was the music director for the Bad tour before that, right? He didn't want to do this other tour. He was kind of done. He wanted to get back to doing studio work, right? What happened was they had a music director who was not very good. Like, all of the production elements were coming together for the tour except the music. So there was questions like, what about this music director? What are we going to do? Like, everybody, even Michael, was like not happy. So
they couldn't be replaced easily. It seems like in Los Angeles there'd be 100 lined up to do it, right?
it's not just about can you do the job. Do you get along with Michael? Do you know how to deal with the personalities? Do you know how to lead the band? Right? He knew Greg Fillinganes, so he was comfortable with Greg. He wanted Greg. So literally 2 days before the tour was going to be put on a boat to go to Europe, it was open, the first show was in Munich, Germany. 2 days before the loadout, they decided we need to fix this problem. So at midnight, they had Greg Fillinganes, and this is before I was even hired, before I even knew what was happening. They had Greg come onto the soundstage. It was on the Universal lot. They had a soundstage, right? And Greg and the production manager and his manager, Michael's manager, on the stage, and they said, "Greg, we need you, man. We need you bad." "I don't want to do it, man." "No, Greg, you don't understand. We need you to take this job. What's your price tag?" There's no amount of money that you can give me." "How about $10,000 a week?" "Oh, are you kidding me? No, I'd make more than that at home." How about 15? "No." "How about 20? "No." "How about $25,000 a week?" "Well, maybe." "How about $30,000 a week?" "Well, now you're starting to talk my language." "How about $35,000 a week?" "Okay, I'll do it." And at that time, this was 1991.
Yeah.
So nobody got paid that kind of money. It was crazy money, right? So he said, "Okay, I'll do it." So the next day, I get the call. We're going in. We're come down here. We're moving all of our gear onto the soundstage, and it's going to be 3 keyboard players now instead of 2. And we're like, what the fuck, right? So the MD used to be like next to the drummer, Ricky Lawson, right? He was like next to the drummer. We come in, we wedge him and put him on the end. So now he's over by the monitor mixer, right? And we're next to Ricky. We spend the next 24 hours, like this is literally like overnight, we're a 24-hour shift of programming the show on this giant rack of synthesizers, right? So we get the show all programmed, ready to go. Greg comes in, does 1 rehearsal with Michael and the full band, and the other MD is still down at the end, right? Pack up the gear. It's going to go off onto the boat to get over to Europe. We get to Europe. The old MD's gear's not on the boat. We literally he just got pushed right off the side of the stage like that. Boom. So I was hired 2 days before the tour left.
Oh, wow.
And then when we got to Munich, we set up in the Olympic Stadium, and we still have work to do. So then we spent 2 overnights, just me and one other guy, in Olympic Stadium trying to finish all the programming for the show. It was nuts.
Wow.
And that's how. So at this point in my journey, I'm like, okay, not only did that payoff of the Barry Manilow thing and those guys and all that, but now I'm making some real money on the biggest tour ever. I mean, because that tour was literally bigger than Taylor Swift. Now, you know what I mean?
That's insane. So where does one go from there? So you've now done the biggest thing ever.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy yourself when you were doing that tour?
I did. It was great. I mean, I really got to travel the world, and travel is the other thing, like music. It's the thing that really gets my juices. I love travel. So I got to see a lot of stuff. Very interesting to be in that kind of a environment where just the pressure, the scrutiny, the everything, the reach of that tour was incredible to see that and how it affected people. And, 50 to 100,000 people a night, and they're passing them over the barricades because they're passing out, and they're, it's just like the craziness that you see in that level of tour. MTV following us the whole tour, doing stories every day about what's going on. And then for the tour to so spectacularly crash and burn, because that was when the first child molestation claims came out.
Oh, wow.
And we were in Mexico City. We were supposed to do 6 shows or 8 shows, I think, in Mexico City. And so we were going to be there for like a week and a half, maybe at the most. We were there for a month and a half, because that's when it happened. That's when the news, well, actually the news came out before, but our next show was going to be Puerto Rico. And if Michael went to Puerto Rico, they were going to arrest him, because there was now a warrant out for his arrest. So,
because that's a U.S. territory.
It's U.S. territory.
Gotcha.
So we're sitting in Mexico City, and we didn't even know what was that. We had to check CNN to find out if we were going to be working that night, because nobody was saying anything. The management team was not saying what we're doing. Just be around, So we'd watch CNN, and then CNN was like, yeah, Michael Jackson is doing a show tonight, or Michael Jackson's canceled his show tonight, whatever. So we sat there, because he canceled a lot. Oh, he's having his wisdom teeth worked on. Oh, he's got the flu. It was all these excuses. So we were sitting there for like a month and a half. Finally, they come and tell us, like, okay, don't tell anybody, but tomorrow we're getting on, because we had a private plane for the band and crew. We're getting on a plane. We're flying back to L.A. Tour is suspended for now. What happened is Michael got on his plane with Elizabeth Taylor, and they flew to Switzerland. And he disappeared for months. Like, nobody on the planet knew where he was. But he was getting treated for his oxy addiction in Switzerland. And Liz Taylor was at his side. We came back to L.A. It was supposed to be all secret. We get into the international terminal, and we clear customs. Next thing you know, the whole place was filled with news people and paparazzi. Somehow they'd heard, right? So it was just like, it was fighting the gauntlet with people sticking the microphones in your face and flash. Like, we knew what was going on. We didn't know what was going on. I mean, we knew what was going on, but we didn't know what happened, really, right? We just knew that Michael disappeared.
Right.
So and then, of course, they said, oh, it's only suspended. And then another month goes by. Oh, we're just wait. We're going to get back, because we had all these dates booked in India and Australia. Like, there was still a whole run of dates. And after about 3 months, there's like, no, I don't think we're going back. So tour's over, just like that. Boom.
Gotcha. So at this point, let's take one more break. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
Happy New Year, ladies and gentlemen, from your pals at Danville Music, your source of the best guitars and music-related accessories here in the Bay Area and around the globe at Danville Music. DanvilleMusic.com, your local music store.
All right, and we're back. I got myself a beer. We had a break, and I'm going to be selfish for a second, because I want to have David Benson back here.
Thank you.
I want to have him back because he's got so much of a story. We can't possibly put it in a compact form. We want to keep going. So hopefully in the future you'd want to come back for a part 2 of this.
Anytime, Adam.
Well,
love doing this. It's been fun.
Oh man, thank you again so much for your time. So I do want to talk about something we discussed on the phone. Unfortunately, I cut David off on a phone call because my good friend Justin, the owner of the Hop Grenade, told me you can't talk too much to somebody before you do a podcast because they'll give you short form stories instead of the long, really interesting form of some of the stories. I mentioned to you that when I was touring in China, my brother, who was a great drummer, and we ended up being a package deal in the San Francisco music scene, like when things were going on, he inadvertently smuggled live ammunition and firecrackers into China. And then you talked about Pablo Escobar, and I got to hit the brakes because I'm sure your story is much better than mine. So
I don't know, man. Smuggling fireworks and live ammo into China is pretty good. I will say it's pretty good.
Well, so how does one meet Pablo Escobar?
Yes. Well, I mentioned earlier that I was like the catch-all everything guy for Jose Feliciano for a while.
Yeah.
And we were on a tour in South America, and this was in the 80s. So, first of all, cocaine was king, right?
Yep.
It was everywhere. And you were only 4 years old, but I'm telling you, it was crazy. But so all of the promoters down there in South America, they were also cocaine kingpins, right? Because that's how they had money, is they were cocaine kingpins, and then they would promote these concerts.
So you're saying most of the concert promoters had ties to the cartel or were the cartel?
Yeah.
Is that the majority? you'd
Yeah.
say?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
they didn't even call them cartels then.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It was before the cartel tag. But so Jose's, I guess you would call him his personal manager, had done the tours before with Jose down there and everything, and knew all the players, and he had this plan to bring, just for personal use only, to smuggle some cocaine back to America on the tour.
What did he consider personal use?
About a pound.
More manly than I am, I guess.
Well, but of course, if it's a pound for him, if I'm the one who's going to be the mule, it's a pound for me too. So now we're talking about 2 pounds.
Okay, cool.
Right? But anyway, so he knew that we were going to Medellin. That was one of the stops. So in Medellin, which is kind of like I don't know how to describe it. It's a town in a valley, but then with steep hills around it, basically. So we did the show in the early evening for the civilians, so to speak, like the regular show down in town. And then after that, we wrapped up. We went up the hill to a private club, and we set up again for a private show for some rich guy. That's all we knew, right? Some rich guy. So we get up there, doing the show. First thing that happens is all these guys in military gear with machine guns rush into the club in the middle of the show. It's like, what's going on? Well, there was just an assassination in the parking lot. We're just here to keep you safe. Okay, great. So literally somebody just got assassinated in the parking lot. So then there's the after party of this private show. So we all go into some room, and there's all these guys around, and you can tell, like, there's this one guy who's really like the king, right? And I didn't know it at the time, but, we're just introduced and everything, and I'm standing there with him, and Jose was next to me, and Jose's manager was next to him, and this guy literally, like, turned to his associate and it was the size of a baseball, a rock of cocaine the size of a baseball, and he put it in Jose's hands and said, "Oh, this is just a little something for you, Jose." And Jose, being blind, it's just like he's just feeling it, like, "Oh my God, thank you." And then we just had this big party, and of course there was, the champagne was flowing, the cocaine was everywhere, it was crazy, women, wine, and song. And I didn't know who the guy was until many years later. I'm in America, and people are, the news reports, they're talking about Pablo Escobar, and they show his face, and I'm like, that was the guy. That was Pablo Escobar.
Oh, wow.
But then the side part of the story is that we're in Medellin, so that's where we picked up our cocaine our 2 pounds of cocaine. And then we traveled for another 2 months all around South America. It was hidden in our equipment, right? Traveled all around.
Okay.
And then at the end, we were in Bolivia, And the promoter in Bolivia, I felt was kind of fucking with us. And, you know, I mean, also imagine it for 3 months, every day, everybody on the tour, all the musicians, Jose, everybody, every day was just as much cocaine as you could handle. Like ridiculous amount.
So I'm imagining the BPMs for every song were raised about like 8 to 10.
Yes,
at
they
least.
were. And the nerves were on edge too. Everybody was like on edge all the time, right? So I just remember being in the lobby of the hotel and seeing the promoter, and literally like I just went off on him, like, how can you take advantage of a blind man? You're not sticking to your end of the deal. We were supposed to be out of here a week ago. Just like railing on him. And then I said in Spanish one of the worst curses you can ever do, which is your mother is a whore. Mm-hmm. I said, your mother's a whore in Spanish, right? Mm-hmm. The drummer was in the lobby at the same time, the drummer of the band, and he heard that, and he literally grabbed me by the arm and physically pulled me out and said, we're out of here right now.
Yep.
So he drags me up to the room 5 minutes later on my door, right? And it's the promoter and 2 goons. And he says, you don't seem to understand that I could leave you in this country for a very long time. You should apologize to me right now, or you're never getting out of here. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. I apologize. Because I could just imagine. And so then we did our last show. We're leaving Bolivia. We're flying from Bolivia nonstop to Miami. So this is from the center of the cocaine cartel to Miami Airport, which is the most scrutinized airport for drug trafficking in America, right?
For a good reason, yeah.
For a good reason.
Yeah.
And I've got this 2 pounds of cocaine hidden in the gear.
Okay, so you probably haven't slept in a while.
Yeah,
You've just gotten shaken down.
yes.
So you're probably sweating it the whole time you're on the airplane. Mm-hmm. So now you're landing. So explain how that goes.
So I was also, because of who I was in charge of all of our road cases. We had about 14. We didn't carry a lot of gear, but we carried enough gear. You know, we had some keyboard gear and we had some percussion gear and whatever, right? So 14 road cases. So here I am in Miami Airport, trying to juggle these 14 cases. Everybody else has gone through already. Every other, Jose's through, the musicians are all through, customs, everything, gone. And I got these cases. Get to the customs guy, and he looks at me and he's like, where's your carnet? And I knew what a carnet was, but I just played dumb because I didn't have it. I didn't do a carnet, right? Well, what do you mean carnet? I'm not sure. I just got hired to do the job. It's just playing stupid, right? Mm-hmm. Well, a carnet is a listing of all your gear and where you bought it and how much it cost, and you got to have that so we don't charge you taxes when you come into the country. I'm like, wow, nobody told me. I literally just got the gig. I'm sorry, I don't have the carnet. He's like, okay, well that's okay. Just next time, make sure you have a carnet. Now, before I let you go, I want you to open up that case and that case, and of course, the second case was the case with all the cocaine. So I'm very calmly like, okay, open up the case, open up the second case. He just looked in. He didn't rifle around. He just looked inside, said, okay, you can go. And I was like, oh my God. Immediately the heart was just like, oh my God, And this is after like months and months of cocaine every day.
I was going to say your heart was
it's already going.
Maybe your heart was used to racing.
Maybe. Maybe. But yeah, and then it's funny because we brought it back and we split. The way that we did it is, remember the old guitar stands that had like a U at the top,
yeah,
and then it was like a silver tube, chrome tube, and a little tripod,
yeah.
Right? So this guy, the road manager or Jose's manager, personal manager, he already had done this before, so he had it all figured out. He had this whole kit with these plastic tubes and a way to seal the tubes up. He had some kind of tool or something. Mm-hmm. And so we put it in all these skinny plastic tubes and sealed up the end and then stuck them up in this guitar stands. Okay. And then sealed the end of the tube with a bunch of plastic. Now, if a dog would have gone over to the case, there's no question that they could sniff right through that shit. I mean, those dogs are crazy, right?
Right.
But nobody did. So we got it all back here, got the guitar stands, went over to the manager's house, hacksawed the things that get you open, and all of a sudden now we've got 2 pounds of cocaine. And this is like pure, unadulterated, uncut, right from Pablo Escobar's boys. You know what I mean? Oh,
man.
So he took his pound, I took my pound, and what I did is I just gave it to all my friends. I made little packages for them. And like they all came over to have a party, and we like, hey, look what I brought back for
Christmas. You had stocking stuffers.
Yeah, it was like a stocking stuffer, exactly. And it's funny because people still talk about that, like, oh my God, I can't believe that you did that.
Oh man, it's amazing. Well, I can't think of a better way to end this podcast with a good part one of the Pablo Escobar shenanigans. But that's fantastic.
Funny story.
I don't even want to tell my brother's smuggling.
No, I'm actually kind of curious now. Like, so did they didn't find it, or they did?
No, they didn't. They totally didn't find it. Well, it's not going to be as interesting as your story, but essentially, my brother and we ended up inadvertently being a package deal for a lot of Bay Area bands, and there was a band called Mini Pop who had gotten a Nokia phone commercial in China with one of their songs, and the lead singer Trisha, and she was like the front woman of the band. She was great. She's got a voice like an angel. Mini Pop, they had some really cool stuff, and my band, the Trophy Fire, had played a lot with Mini Pop, and it just happened that my brother and I were available for this gig to go to China this is like 2 weeks after I'd just been married.
Wow.
So and then they're like, we got this gig, we can play in China. We had 12 dates, and I was like, yeah, I've never been to China. Like you, I love to travel, like seeing different stuff. And so the first thing I do is I get online, and I'm just trying to figure out, all right, well, what's the worst thing you can do in China? Because whenever I go to a country I don't know, the first thing I figured out was like, what are the rules that will get you in jail?
Yeah, exactly.
just have an education on that.
Yeah.
And the big headline was like just marijuana. Like don't bring pot into China. Like that's the worst thing ever. And the bass player at the time who was traveling with us, we knew was a huge pothead. So we told him, the bass player, like, do not bring marijuana into China. Whatever you do, whatever it is you do, just don't. Just hold off. If you're lucky enough, you might be able to find it out there, but just be careful. And we make it through SFO customs, and then we make it through Taiwan customs. We're getting into Taiwan, and all of a sudden, the bass player comes through with his bass case, and alarms are going off and all sorts of stuff.
Oh no!
So my brother and I are going, that dumb motherfucker. He brought weed. We just know it. He brought weed into China. We told him not to, blah, 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 blah. And it turns out that he did not, in fact, bring anything except for a 9-volt battery that was tripping off some of their alarms. So as we're on the other side of customs, we're laughing about it. And my brother he's that guy who 4 out of 6 times, if he forgets he has a pocket knife and he goes through an airport, they don't catch it.
Right.
He's just, and I love my brother. He's a great dude. He's Captain Charisma. He's that guy. So as we're laughing about it, he is like putting he's grabbing a sweater because it's cold in the airport terminal, and he looks up at me and his eyes go huge, and I look in his backpack, and he had gone camping the week before where he had firecrackers and live 22 ammunition because he had gone plinking.
Oh my God!
My brother and I we like to go shooting.
Yeah.
I used to love going trap shooting. Before I had kids, I did it almost every other weekend. And so he looks at me, and I'm looking at him. And I'm like, well, I think what you should do is you go to the bathroom right now with your backpack and figure out a way to get rid of this stuff. He's like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Oh my God.
But that was the smuggling story. So he ended up flushing a bunch of live 22 rounds down the toilet. Hopefully nothing blew up when he did that.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But of all places to carry fireworks into, China would be the last place because they invented fireworks.
That's exactly. I made the joke. I actually made that joke. I'm like, you can either make the joke that you guys invented this stuff, or
yeah.
or just So yeah. That what struck me is like we made it through 2 international airport checkpoints, and they didn't see that.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't give me a lot of faith in what's going on out there.
Well, there's a lot of joke about that whole thing, TSA and everything, but
right.
Well, listen, I will say, and maybe I'm not proud, but I have carried lots of drugs across lots of borders in my life. Some that I really should be in jail. But I've been lucky, I mean, I don't have the charisma of your brother, but somehow I've been able to do it. And I mean, never for sale. And that crazy Miami story, with Pablo Escobar's cocaine.
Yeah.
Never anything that big.
Yeah.
But sure, I've definitely carried drugs,
I mean, one could argue from an existential point, what my brother did was way worse. Like
in some ways.
Live ammunition, something that can harm somebody versus somebody who wants to party or medicate themselves.
Right.
I would say, I hate my brother now.
Oh, sorry. That didn't mean to do that. Yeah. Didn't mean to bring that up.
Something that in an altruistic way I really want to convey is how important it is, whether you're doing music or doing the arts or whether you want to become a lawyer or a doctor. It's important to let people know that it's going to be okay if you hit roadblocks. And it's going to be okay when you hit rock bottom. And almost everybody who's been successful has those sort of stories. And one of the things I love most about what you've talked about today is your story, and not just about how you excelled, but how you had not only the intuition and basically the just the foresight to know that this isn't the end. It's just a way to educate myself to where I can do better in my next endeavor. And that's what I love about your stories.
Well, you're kind to say that for sure. And one of the things that I like to talk about is that you don't always know where you're going. You're on a road, you're on the life path, but you never are really sure what turn is going to take or what's going to get you to either your dreams, your goals, or maybe there's even some dreams and goals that you don't know about. And it's one of the things that I like to share about my life is that there were things that I had no idea that I was going to be good at. I just knew that I put one foot in front of the other, and I had some kind of ability. It started as a musician, and of course, the love of music has always driven me. But to find these other ways through a very twisty, turny journey, it was even more fulfilling for me because I didn't know. I had an idea. And that's one of the things that I really want to share with your listeners and with anyone who's trying to make something happen in a creative endeavor, whether it's music, art, film, whatever. I'm like right now, my new thing is I'm trying to do film. So it's a whole nother creative endeavor that has a lot of ups and downs. But I don't know where it's going to go today. I know that I'm on a path, and I want other people to know, just take a step and see what happens. And I'm hoping that the short stories that we're going to talk about today will give that inspiration to people that you don't know, but just go. You don't have to know, just go.
And that's great advice. And I would, to put some icing on what you just said, I'd really encourage people to just Google famous people or successful people who failed at first.
They all do.
Yeah.
They all do. I mean,
I'm thinking Walt Disney.
Yeah.
He got fired from a newspaper because he didn't have enough imagination.
Right, yeah.
Henry Ford bankrupted several companies before he did Ford Motor Company.
Yeah.
And it seems that attitude is more important than aptitude sometimes.
Very true. Just look at, just in music. I think you could say the same for almost every musician. I don't know any musician that has just gone from zero to hero in a straight line. All of them have a lot of rejection, you're never going to do this, go back to selling shoes or whatever you did, right? And then you see all of a sudden, everybody from the Beatles, Elvis, Christopher Cross, for God's sakes. I mean, all of them, Bruno Mars, all have a similar origin story, which is, I believed in myself, but nobody believed in me. And I think that's important. And I'm glad that we're going to have the opportunity to talk through some of these things so that hopefully people will take away that you can have a dream and that you can achieve the dream. Just don't expect it to be a straight line.
And don't expect it to be fast and easy.
No, never. But at the end of the day, it will be very fulfilling, and it'll be exactly what it should be for you.
I cannot wait for part 2. So we'll work something out. And again, with your experience, with your wisdom, I can't tell you how honored I am. You are on part of the podcast, and you want to be part of this. And looking forward to having some dinner with you and some of your friends.
Hey, man. Thank you so much, Adam. It's been a gas.
All right.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Happy New Year, ladies and gentlemen, from your pals at Danville Music, your source of the best guitars and music-related accessories here in the Bay Area and around the globe at Danville Music. DanvilleMusic.com, your local music store.